Hi, and welcome to Sister Mixon's Whole Circle podcast, where we talk about all the good things in life, like health, wellness, fitness, and food. And it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So join your hosts, Tracey and Joanne. Hey everyone, it's just the two of us today, and we are here to talk about Jo's story. So I'm super excited about this because Jo's story is so inspirational, and as a big sister, I'm so proud of her and her achievements as a mum and as a wife, but more importantly as a businesswoman as well. She totally rocks it, and I'm so super proud of you, Jo. So I am going to interview you and share with all our listeners your story and how Sister Mixon began, because it's kind of interesting, and I think we do get asked a few questions about it all the time. So let's start, Jo, with pretty much right from the beginning. So kind of almost even before, well, definitely before Jacob was born, but almost before Eva was born. So what sort of food were you eating? And you've always had a bit of a struggle with your weight and things like that. So we're going to be totally honest and share with everyone all sorts of things. So, yeah, tell us where it kind of began.
Oh, thanks, Trace. I don't really... The only thing I can think of is where I guess our lives definitely took a turn for the better with food was, I guess, back in August 2013. But prior to that, yeah, I have always struggled with my weight. I've always been definitely more on the heavier side. And, I think that was due to, I guess, just not eating the right foods. And I think that, our parents both worked big, long hours, and, more packets started to come into the shelves. And I really had no idea what I guess I was meant to be eating and what I wasn't, I suppose.
There's definitely, I know...
So I sort of just...
Yeah, I know that, we both moved out of home pretty early. So whilst that's not anyone's fault, and we're not saying mum and dad did a crappy job or anything like that, it's more that convenience foods were there, and they were easy and they were cheap, like super cheap. So when you're just young and you're living in a rental and you've got no money and you're in your first job, of course convenience foods creep in because they're cheap.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was I could even afford what we call convenience food, like packet mixes and flavorings and things. I remember just eating a lot of toast with Vegemite.
Well, that's cheap.
Because honestly, I remember back when I was only 17 and I lived in a one-bedroom unit and I was doing a traineeship. I was on $150 a week and $65 of that was in rent. I just used to eat bread for most meals of the day because I just couldn't afford anything else. And then I guess, not only weight came with it, but also tiredness and health. And I constantly had tonsillitis and I was always on antibiotics.
Oh my God, you got so sick when you were 17. I remember ringing the hospital. Jo was in hospital. And I remember ringing and saying, can I talk to Joanne Joanne Mihailoff, please? And you went, it's me. I'm like, no, what, really? Because you sounded nothing like yourself. You were so sick, I didn't even recognise you.
Yeah, that was when I had glandular fever, and I was put in hospital for I think about 10 days, and they thought they would have to put a tube in my throat to help me breathe because my throat had closed over so much that I was struggling to breathe. And I was definitely very, very sick. And you know what? That glandular fever took me out for years. I reckon it took me 10 years to overcome that. And every time, even now to this day, every time I get run down or I get tired, it goes straight to my throat.
Yeah.
And I can feel it immediately. So as soon as I have a sore throat, I know that something's going on and I need to pick up my act and I need to start looking after myself a little bit better.
Yeah. So I think from your perspective, your journey definitely started almost before you had kids, because I I believe that you realised you just didn't know how to do it. Like we didn't have the information or the knowledge. And let's face it, it was kind of almost before the internet. So there was no Dr. Google.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
So then you had Eva. And she's totally gorgeous, by the way, for those that have never seen a photo of her or met her on our Facebook or Instagram or seen anything to do with her. Oh, my God, she's the cutest little thing. And she's so caring and so thoughtful. She's got the best soul on the planet. But you had Eva and things sort of got a bit derailed. So can you go through that?
Yeah, I guess from a personal point of view, taking Eva aside is, I had Eva, and after I had Eva, I was grossly overweight, and I knew something had to change. And I joined Weight Watchers, and I lost a lot of weight. But and I'm not bagging out Weight Watchers. I think it's a great program, but it was very much filled with Diet Coke was 0 points, and low fat food was good, and the program has changed now, and they have realized that low fat food is very high in sugar, and it has all changed now. But back when I did it, those foods were very much, and I guess it wasn't even just Weight Watchers, it was just marketing in general and weight loss programs in general, was that low fat products were good for you.
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day. And we should all be eating low-fat yogurt. We should all be drinking low-fat milk. And I guess that's what we believed. And, I'm so thankful that 6 years down the track, I definitely know better now. And I think a lot of other people know better now too, which is great.
Yeah. No, absolutely, totally agree. It is. Marketing is really got something to answer for, really, let's face it. So when did you first decide that there was something not right with Eva? That sounds really bad, but yes. You know what I mean.
Oh, yes. Sorry, got a bit off topic there. But yeah, going back to Eva, I guess she was the perfect baby, and I can honestly say that. She slept well, she ate well, she was breastfed, she was breastfed for 5 months, and then I went back to work, and she went on the bottle. She handled that really well. She was the perfect baby, and it was only up until 18 months old, she was really just having vegetables and fruit.
Yeah.
And maybe a milk arrowroot, and maybe a rusk, but I never bought those packet mix baby foods in the squeegee pouches. Yeah. And not because I didn't think they were good for her. I just thought they were a waste of money. And I just thought, there's no way I am spending $1.60 or $1.70 on a tiny little pouch of vegetable when I can make a whole pot for almost that price. So it wasn't, because of the health. It was the money, really.
Yep.
And so then anyway, after probably when she was about 18 months old, we started introducing different foods. Like I guess definitely she would have meals that we were having. And I was cooking a lot from packet mixes and a lot from Canton jars and chicken tonight and the continental packet mixes like this, beef stroganoff and the tacos and the Mexican spice mix and oh my goodness, I used to spend a bomb in that aisle because it was just so convenient for me to do that. Working,
you were a working mum.
Mix was done.
Absolutely,
it was done.
Yeah, totally agree.
And I didn't know they weren't good for us. I had no idea that they were filled with MSG or everything else. So I guess her behaviour started changing from probably about 18 months old.
Yeah.
Like looking back, and I can think about it. And I guess I just put her down to being challenging and being busy. And then when she turned, when she was probably 2.5, I started thinking there's just something not right. There's just something not right here. She was biting so she was in daycare and she was constantly biting other children, and she was scratching I couldn't reason with her, and I just knew that it was more than the 2-year-old tantrums.
And
she just
let's face it, I just want to say Joe has an early childhood background for work, so it's not something that she's like, oh my God, there's something wrong with my daughter. She, and we don't like to use the word normal, but it is kind of a generic word. So normal behaviour is what we would call appropriate behaviour for a child. So, you see the kids in the supermarket on the floor kicking and screaming. As society, that's not appropriate. So that's not normal behaviour. And if that was going on daily, so this is what we're sort of saying is Joe realised that, that her normal behaviour was not Eva. Like she couldn't listen to a story. She couldn't sit down and read a book, watch a movie for 5 minutes. And I remember Joe would ring me and, because being the older sister and I've got older children and Joe would ring and say, well, what, did your kids, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, mine would sit down and watch the Wiggles for the afternoon just for rest time, or they would, I could read them 10 stories and they would sit there and not wiggle and fidget and get up and walk away. And when Joe was describing stuff, I didn't want to panic her, so I'd be saying stuff like, it's okay, Joe, like she's 2, she's just busy, like, don't worry about it, she'll grow out of it, it'll be fine. But deep down in Joe's mind, and I can say this because we've had this discussion many times, so I'm not speaking for Joe, that she knew something wasn't quite right. And so she tackled it with food. So let's go into that, Joe.
Yeah, I definitely knew something wasn't right. She got this label of Cyclone Eva. And we all used to joke about it. Oh, Cyclone Eva's here, because that's literally what she was like. She was like a little cyclone going from the front door through the house, like the Tassie Devil character. Honestly, she was just so hyperactive and just not right. The other thing with Eva, before I get on to how I changed her diet and made life a lot easier for her and everyone else, was she was always sick.
Yes.
She was really healthy, again, up until about 1.5. And then all of a sudden she just got sick constantly. She constantly had tonsillitis.
Yeah.
And the poor little thing, she had her tonsils and adenoids removed before she was 2. She was only 20 months old, which is really rare to have them removed so young, but that's how sick she always was. Yeah. She always had tonsillitis, but she would also quite often get ear infections. She generally had a cold a lot. What else? She had bronchitis. She actually had pneumonia over New Year's one year. And she just was always sick, sick. I don't know how I didn't get sacked from my job, because I was just always off work looking after her. And so anyway, what I did was, so Jacob was born. He's now 3. And Eva's behaviour was out of control. And I just knew something had to give. I started heading down the road of almost postnatal, and I remember thinking to myself, I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up for this. This is not the way that it's meant to be. Like, no one told me that life was meant to be like this, because
that it was going to be so hard.
I wouldn't have signed up for it. Yeah. And
so when Jacob came along, sorry, Joe, to butt in. When Jacob came along, he wasn't the perfect baby. So let's just talk about that really briefly.
So when Jacob was born, he came out challenging to start with. He was 10 pounds, and
he was like a 3-month-old.
He was 58 centimeters long and 10 pounds, and but it wasn't so much that was the hard thing to get him out. He also came out forehead first and posterior, so upside down, face up. So his birth was horrific, and it took me a long time to recover from that. But I didn't get the opportunity to recover from that, because he screamed from the second he came out to when he was about 8 weeks old. And we figured out that he was lactose intolerant. So he was actually allergic to my breast milk. And as soon as we put him on a bottle of lactose-free formula, he instantly went to sleep and slept for 7 hours. Like, instantly. And I was too scared to tell anyone for 2 days. I didn't tell anyone for 2 days that he was sleeping because I didn't want to jinx it. He had a body full of eczema from head to toe. He just constantly had a tummy ache. He had diarrhea. He was vomiting constantly, and he would not stop crying. And Shane, my husband, had gone away for work. Jacob was probably about 3 weeks old. Eva's behaviour was off the show. I was buying McDonald's. I was buying Chinese. I wasn't cooking because life was tough, and I struggled to get a piece of toast in the toaster. So we were having a lot of takeaway, and poor Eva could just not handle it. And life was not cool.
Life was tough. It was tough. And there must be many parents in that situation, because I know even for myself who have, luckily, touch wood, luckily my kids have never had severe behavioural problems due to food. I've certainly had some moments where I could have, just left them at the supermarket, but that wasn't possibly due to food. It was just, kids obviously have challenging moments still. And these are the things I was saying to Joe, but not realising that it was not just one challenging moment in a week. It was 5 challenging moments in a day, So Joe got really good at hiding Eva, its behavioural issues as well. So that was kind of really sad in a way, that she couldn't describe it as well to us as family. But in saying that, because none of us had gone through that or seen that behaviour, because we live in different states, it was really hard to understand. Anyway, so moving on from that, so poor little Jacobs, he's screaming his head off. You've got a 3-year-old that's going off the Richter scale, and you head to your first Thermomix demonstration where a lady talks about a preservative that's in custard. So this is where it all started, and this is how Systemixon began. Joe was listening to this demonstration. She's heard this woman talk about some number. What the hell was that? What? I don't understand what you're talking about. And she's paying attention, and she heads home. And luckily by now the internet's a wonderful thing, and we've progressed into the 21st century. And she Googles these numbers, and this is where it began.
Yeah, so I got invited to this Thermomix demo, and again, my husband was away. I had to get Eva babysat because there's no way I could have taken her. And anyway, so I got her babysat. Jacob and I went off, and something took me along to this demo. I don't know why I forced myself to go, but I went. And yeah, there was a lady there who's a health coach, and she mentioned it's an artificial food colour 102 in custard powder. And I thought to myself, and I had seen a couple of things going around on Facebook about food additives. Like it was sort of when it was just coming out, I suppose. And so I thought that's a bit weird, what does that mean? What are you talking about? And she also mentioned spelt flour, and I thought, what the heck's spelt flour? And so I went home that night and I Googled it. I Googled 102, and I was really horrified to read what 102 meant. And I Googled spelt flour and found out that that's actually a grain, and, you can eat that in bread and stuff. And so anyway, I Googled all these numbers, and I thought to myself, something is not right.
Yeah.
What the heck is going on?
It was like the aha moment. Aha, this is the thing. This is making sense. It was like the magical moment that happened in your life with Eva.
Absolutely. And you know what? I was at a point where I was willing to try everything and anything. I had booked Eva into a clinic to get her tested for ADHD, and I knew in my mind, in my heart actually, that they were going to put her on medication. And that broke my heart. Like, I get emotional now because I think we would have done that. If I hadn't realised that these additives and preservatives in food would never have, like, if I hadn't have changed her diet, I have no doubt in my mind that she would be on medication. And for her, it didn't have to be that way. So I'm just so thankful that I figured this out
Absolutely.
before we put her on medication.
Yeah. And that's not to say that medication isn't for some people, because, you know, we're no doctors and stuff, but I think what Joe's saying is it's worth trying other things, or, you know, just giving it a go, because you just never know. The power of food, it is so powerful, what we eat. And this is where, you know, we're at now. We've learned so much information in the last couple of years that we're both 100% totally confident that the power of food affects our health, that food affects our health. Totally 100%. I can put my hand on my heart and say food affects our health.
There is no doubt. And even Pete Evans says it. Food is medicine. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
Food is meant to be there to make us survive.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be there.
It's not meant to make us sick.
Make us sick or to, and like, I don't know. And I guess I'm not against modern medicine at all. I'm not against Ritalin or dexamphetamines. I'm not against that, because I do believe that sometimes children, adults, people do need that. But as Tracey said, I think that, you know, if we can try anything else first, then we should be trying that.
Or even in conjunction with, you know, we've had success in our course, our Additive-Free Made Easy course, where people have, you know, worked in conjunction with their psychiatrists or psychologists and doctors and realised, you know, they've lowered medication levels and gradually, hopefully, will come off medication due to changing their diets. And as they're learning more about what they're feeding their families, you know, we've had people that have totally come off medication, and we've got some interviews about those over on our blog, which are totally so inspirational and mind-blowing. So they're definitely worth checking out over on our blog, because you know, the success of food has, it's totally blown our minds. But back to Eva. So now, you know, you're 3 years down the track of feeding her, and, you know, we never, ever, ever profess to be perfect. So there are moments when we still head to birthday parties, or you get, you know, once a year you might still get McDonald's because you've driven 8 hours to somewhere on camping trip and you've got no, you know. So there are definitely moments when, you know, we mess up still. But 99.9% of the time, you know, what's like the diet with Eva is pretty strict. So what's her behaviour like now?
Yeah, well, you know what? I pretty much noticed a difference straight away. So what happened was, my husband came back from Sydney, and I printed out, I put together this big list, which took me hours and days to do. And we went to our fridge and pantry, and we threw in the bin every single food that we had that contained a concerning number or word. And her behaviour just changed pretty much overnight. It was a miracle come true. She stopped having these massive meltdowns that would result in her curling up on a floor and rocking back and forth. She would have a meltdown that would stop. She would have a meltdown that would, like, we could talk to her and we could reason with her.
Yeah. Where
before, when she would have a meltdown, the only way she would stop that meltdown is when she went to sleep because of exhaustion.
Yeah.
So it was totally different. And then, you know, 12 months down the track, probably 6 months down the track, there was still a few things going on. Like, she still had red rosy cheeks, and she still was very focused in, like, almost OCD. Like, everything had to be in a pattern and everything had to be in order. And yeah, there was still quite a few things. So we went to a naturopath and we changed her diet up a little bit more, and it seems dairy's not so good for her, and we sort of went to a gluten-free diet for a while. And, you know, so it was a very constant process, and it's definitely a lot easier 3 years down the track. But sometimes we do still think, what's been reintroduced into your diet? Because we can tell now between an additive meltdown and a normal 6-year-old not happy meltdown.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, looking at it now, you know, I used to think to myself, so when she was 3, she was heading off to kindy the year after, and I remember thinking to myself, there is no way she's going to survive at kindy, let alone prep. how in the heck is she going to, we're in Queensland, so she has to go to prep when she's 4, being a March baby, and how I don't know how she's ever going to survive in a classroom. Well, I'm pleased to say that she breezed through prep last year. She did get very tired, and she was 4.
Yeah.
But she did really well, and now that she's in grade 1, she's doing really, really well. We do need to watch her emotions, and we need to be mindful that we can't put too much on her. Like, she's quite an anxious sort of little thing, and we can't put too much pressure on her, too many tasks at the one time. Like, things still need to be, okay, so now go pop your shoes on. And so she does that. Okay,
and a lot of that's just, yeah, so that's sort of her personality trait as well, not so much totally food related. So an average lunchbox, we're talking fruits and salads and vegetables and gluten-free or spelt floured wraps or rolls or things like that.
Yeah, so she's got she's quite sensitive to texture. So she's a little bit fussy in what she eats because things need to be the right texture still. And so she went off today with spaghetti bolognese in a little thermos, and she had some sultanas, some homemade yogurt, some chopped up cheese, and some carrot sticks.
Yeah,
and that was her lunch today.
So like I said earlier, when we started this interview, I just couldn't be more proud of Jo. The decisions she's made and the steps she's taken to better her family's health, it really is inspirational. And, I can honestly say if the both of us can do it, then anyone can do it, because if Jo can get through a child completely not sleeping, one going off the Richter scale the whole time, her husband was away, she was basically playing single mum for a few, while her hubby was away, then anyone can do it. Because
yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I'm all on my own up here. I don't really have a lot of support. So it wasn't like I could have rang you or rang mum and gone, can you just come and help? I need some groceries, or I need, I remember a really beautiful friend, Mia, of ours, she rang me and said, do you need anything? And I was still in my dressing gown. It was in the afternoon. And I said, can you please just go to the chemist and get Jacob some eczema cream? Because I really had no one. So I sort of figure that exactly what Tracey said. If I can do it, I'm just a normal person. There's nothing special about me at all.
There's really not. There's nothing special.
I'm not different to anybody else. I'm not different to you. I'm not different to anyone else. It's just, you just need to have that motivation to want to do it.
Yeah.
Really?
You are very stubborn. So, and I think that's a family trait. We're all very stubborn. So that is probably, if you're not a stubborn person, you may find it a little harder, because you have to be stubborn and you have to be in that mindset. And that's probably another podcast we should do, is all about mindset, because that is totally something you have to be focused, and a lot of planning and a lot of, but this is not where it started. So, it took us both, and Jo's story is totally different to mine. So we should do a podcast on my story, because it is totally different.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so anyway, that's probably about it, because we're heading towards our time limit. But, again, if you want to know more and you want to, get in contact with us and you want to find out more about Jo's story or get help from either of us, then please send us an email, because we are so willing to help out, because we don't want any other families to go through what Jo has had to go through, because it's horrible, totally horrible.
Yeah, and I guess, I just do want to give a plug to our course, because it's changed so many families' lives. We've made an e-course called Additive-Free Made Easy, and you can find it at additive-free-made-easy.com. And it really has changed hundreds of families' lives. And as Tracey said before, we've got some amazing stories on our blog, which is actually at sistermixon.com, where you can read, other families' lives that have changed. Like things like this little boy has no more epilepsy. Like, just incredible stories. Incredible. So, yeah, please, if you are interested, check it out. Feel free. And as Tracey said, feel free to email us, and hopefully my story has inspired you guys. And, you know, and as I said to Trace, if we can just help one more person, then our job's done.
Absolutely. And you can find us on all the normal social media channels as well. So you can contact us through Instagram or Facebook as well if you can't remember the email address, which is just info@sistermixon.com. Or, you know, our blog is sistermixon.com. So if you can't find us on any of those, you can definitely find us on Facebook or Instagram, and we would be more than happy to answer some questions and help you out and point you in the right direction. And if we don't know the answer, we will find someone who does. So that is something else as well. We will help you as much as we can on your food journey. So that's it from us. Thanks, Jo, for being interviewed by me.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.